of the main things for me at Crosspoint, when you use the word that makes you feel alive, has been the fact that going to Crosspoint, there is not an emphasis on being at church. There's an emphasis on being the church. And I think everywhere else I'd ever gone to church and growing up, there was such an emphasis on being at activities at church on Sundays and Wednesdays, and there were things in between. And I think there was just a sense of freedom and relief about not feeling guilt about having to be at church all the time. And instead feeling like we can actually, as a family, have time together or be involved in other activities in the community.
And that combined with being so heavily involved in the neighborhood where we were living and working, it was pretty crucial. I mean, it was very clear that we couldn't have sustained a lot of church involvement and also a lot of neighborhood involvement, and we felt very strongly at that point that we were called to be in North Park and to work and to love and live with those people. So Crosspoint always enabled us to be able to do that.
I like that it's been nomadic. I mean, it's hard, and I know it's harder on, I'm sure it's harder on people like Jerry or on musicians or whoever's having to move equipment or doing those kind of things when we've been at the Civic Center or different places. But I've always liked the fact that we didn't have a set building that we had huge financial responsibility to, because I feel like it has given a sense of ability to focus on something else, because there's so much that can get caught up in having a building, decorating it, paying the bills, maintaining it, upkeep, all those things that go with owning a building, that I think it's been really nice actually to not have that. And it has its challenges, but I think it also takes the emphasis off of a building and puts it on people, and I think that's really important. So
I think the other part of that I see is just the idea of journeying together, and that we have made it literally from one end of Abilene to the other, and yet we're still together and we're still pursuing God, pursuing love together, and that to me it really underscores what we talk about when we're talking about modeling and the way essentially that just we're living our lives, doing the most simple basic things of living life together, and yet we're modeling it in ways that are that even our children pick up on. It's that obvious. At its basic level, downtown really represents the core of Abilene. Being community people, learning more about just the dynamics of what makes a city, what makes a community, what makes a healthy community. We were drawn to what seems to represent Abilene and its localness. You don't get the on the fringes, suburbia or whatever. Not that Abilene has suburbs really, but you get a lot of big box and a lot of quickly manufactured places, where yet here at the core we have history, we have well-built structures and things that make you want to be there, that draw you there for some reason. So naturally we're attracted to injecting whatever life or culture or ultimately I think with Crosspoint, and injecting love into that scene and being a part of it. So
the concept of being downtown and local business and as a church community, I think that speaks to what we want to say is valuable as Christians, is that these relationships, when we put relationship above product and a relationship above productivity, that's a Christ-like characteristic that we should be participating in as believers, and not seeing it as, oh well, that's just worldly and this, but I think that we see how our Christian values can affect the culture and the world around us.
We've really had to come into the realization that one of our greatest contributions to the world is decent people, decent children, and that is really hard.
And I mean, I think having such an intense desire for our children to love God and other people and to show respect toward other people, but recognizing that that's part of the learning experience for kids is, and that comes through them seeing how we treat other people more than anything.
Sure.
And so I think that's a huge...
How we talk about them when we get home.
Yeah, I think that's a huge
really.
dream, is that our children will see us, and then also that they'll see the people of Crosspoint showing love and respect to one another, so that they learn that, and that that's important. And that they have I think to me as a mom, I want my daughter to see other people interacting with her in a loving way that represents what I want her to act like. I want her to look up to Aaron. I don't want to keep her from that. I want her to see someone at church who, for me, that I respect, who I can say, I love that my daughter wants to be around that person and be like them. And I think that's for me as a mom to be able to say, I want people at Crosspoint to model that too.
And the truth is that we can't fully be successful as parents, I believe, without that community, and that community now is Crosspoint. My dream for Crosspoint would be all the things you said, but also just continuing to. There goes a kid. But also just continuing to move, to never grow stagnant. One of the most influential things I ever heard Jerry say from the pulpit, from the stool, is that Crosspoint, we have to be willing, or something to the fact, maybe this is what I heard, but Crosspoint could die, and that's fine. And I think for the first time ever, I was, coming from a church that was just struggling not to die and had been dead for 10 years in a lot of ways, to come into a place that said, this thing could die. I don't know, there's just something
and that's
resonated.
okay.
Yeah, and that's okay, and that's great, because we knew that there was this release of, we're not just going to do this because it's always been done, or we necessarily need to do it one way or another, but we're going to do this because we can, and we're still engaged, and we're still making a difference of somehow, our connection. So